Formula E was back last weekend in Putrajaya in Malaysia, where the weather was probably the biggest factor of the race and caused quite a bit of chaos for a lot of drivers. But it wasn't only the temperature. Pretty much anything that could have gone wrong in the race happened. Not just to one driver, which was nice because that happens sometimes, but across the grid there were problems, and Lucas de Grassi was the driver who came out of that on top. Just a bit manic, really. So let's get into how it actually happened. Trulli didn't actually get to race once again. They didn't get past scrutineering. They made it to scrutineering this time, so I guess that's an improvement. But they didn't manage to pass scrutineering, so this is 2 out of 2 races that Trulli haven't attended, which is not great for them. Buemi started on pole again. He started on pole in Beijing and again in Putrajaya, so that's 2 out of 2. It really didn't go much better from there, really. It started high and then just went down very fast. Not quite as fast as Stefan Salazan did. Surprisingly, Salazan started in second after getting into the Super Pole shootout and qualifying second. For those who don't follow Formula E, in Formula E we don't have a formation lap because they just dawdle around to try and save battery. So what they do is they start 1 grid place back, well 2 grid places back, but 1 row back, and then they have a tiny little forward into your starting position. But Salazan couldn't get off of his formation grid into the actual starting grid, which sucked a lot. The start was delayed and Salazan started from the pit lane. So Sebastian Buemi's weekend went there, but Salazan's went even faster. That was like a vertical drop, so that sucked for him. And it was kind of a sign of what was going to happen through the entire race. You just didn't know. Everyone's been talking since last race about dominance from Edams. Edams did brilliantly last weekend. They did pretty good in qualifying and practice sessions, but in the race it kind of just all fell apart. Battery temperatures. Prost had to pit early because his battery was overheating, and then Buemi had the same problem but couldn't quite get to the pits before the car just shut off. Williams say it's not the battery's fault necessarily. They say the battery shuts off to protect the entire car and it could be something wrong with any bit of the car, but the temperatures are kind of getting the blame for that. So then Buemi got the car started again and got into the pits. Prost came out of the pits in first, but then when you pit that early, then your battery, you've got a longer for your battery to last, which isn't that easy. So he had to conserve battery quite early on in the second stint and then lost out places. He finished 10th, and Buemi was making good progress after his falling out of the points when his car just stopped, and he was in the points when his car stopped again, which was not great, and he ended up finishing 12th. Not great for the team who were doing so well in the first race. Reading their press release, disappointment was the principal outcome of the race. That was Edam's race. They weren't the only ones having problems. Da Costa also stopped on track with temperature problems. There was contact with other cars for Jean Verne at the beginning of the race, and he got knocked out of the race right at the start. There was contact with the wall for Oliver Turvey, again right at the start of the race, which was quite inconvenient with him. Mahindra had a lot of radio problems for both their drivers. And Heidfeld had a drive-through penalty because his pit stop was too short, but then he couldn't hear that he had a drive-through because he didn't have any radio, and then it ended up into a stop-and-go penalty by accident, I think. Right at the end of the race, Frains hit the wall and ended up crabbing over the finish line. You know it's been a weird race when the person who finishes in third, his car isn't completely intact. Although, like, to be fair, last race that could have happened if they hadn't pulled Prost off of the track. So I just guess that goes to show what Formula E is like, really. De Grassi finished first, then Bird second, and Frains third. My driver of the race is the driver who finished fourth, which would be Stefan Sauersan, who qualified in second, but then couldn't actually get any further than the fourth slot in the grid. He started from the pit lane, finished fourth. That just is. It was just a crazy race, and I guess that's just what Formula E is. Buemi managed to get fastest lap after everything, so he got points for fastest lap and he got points for pole. He actually managed to get more points than Prost, who got points in for being in 10th, so that was. But De Grassi is now leading the championship, and now there's a bit of a gap until December when we have our race in Punta del Este in Uruguay. See you again after Punta del Este.